Teresita Blanco, dear sister, and today we're reading Saturnastra Chicot. This is chapter 15, the tournament. In order to test out the armor, Chicot had the brilliant idea of attending a nice tournament. They usually held such tournaments in the main feudals during the summer. The one closest to our Little Sophia was in the city of Et Ciri. Et Ciri was directly governed by the berserker lords. It had been under their management for the last 40 years. At another time, its size rivaled that of the capital, Veragerung. Now it was surrounded by ruins of its former splendor. Only during the tournament did its old buildings recover some of their former splendor as vendors, weaponsmiths, and makeshift bars opened up shop. The trip to Et Ciri only lasted 8 days. A good number of us came along, even Alviss, who was bored of Little Sophia. We arrived with ample time to set up camp and sign up for the tournament. Chicot had also a few sharp-looking swords and a few questionable clubs to try out as well. Those who were testing out the questionable weapons also wore the light, medium, and heavy versions of the prototype armor. Frankly, I could not tell the difference between one and the other. All these models lacked the splendor of the original. I brought up my concerns while Paola and Sir Richard were trying on their armors. The one who was to use the heavy version was the leader of the guards, the drunkard Alviss. I call him a drunk because every time I see him, he's always drinking. I never see him train, and most of the time he's just loafing about. This tournament was going to be the first time I saw him in action. Chicot said, I wanted to tone down the design for good reason. But aren't we trying to sell those armors, I insisted. Gosh, how can you be so narrow-minded? These armors are not for sale. I am going to give them away for free. If I were to sell, then no one will be able to afford the true cost of them, said Chicot proudly. I still think you should find a better use of your time, I commented. Look at it like a hobby or a game. It's been ages since I made one of these little armors, said Chicot happily. When Alviss was fully fitted, he said, There's no need for you to understand, little man. This is what Chicot wants, and as his employees, it is our job to play along. It is as simple as that. It is simple for a brute like you not to give any thought to anything, I said, pouting. Watch it, Joseph, said Sir Richard. Let him say whatever he wants, Alviss doesn't care, said Paola, smiling. It's Alviss, said Richard's illustrious leader, yawning. Looking back, Alviss never had an official leadership title. He was someone who his men just blindly obeyed when Fortnite was not around, which was usually all the time. Why do you have such a stupidly long name? Asked Paola, frowning. Alviss shrugged his shoulders and said, I don't know, you should just ask my mother. Once the knights were fully prepared, we went to the stands to watch the show. The tournament usually focused on a large company of 9, and since we came from a small town, no one belittled us for having only 3 participating fighters. They were expecting as much. The first event was the jousting competition. The knights were supposed to charge at one another with a lance. The winner was the one who knocked down his opponent. Alviss was the one who chose to compete in this fight. When Alviss rode, the lance of his opponent smashed against his armor. It was a miracle he had not gotten impaled. Staggering, he came to see Chicot. Chicot commented, Your reaction time was slow. My arms feel heavy in this thing, commented Alviss. He added, Still, the armor absorbed a lot of the attack, though the fall did bruise my side somewhat. I should account for fall damage on my next model, said Chicot, frowning. You still up for another fight? Asked Alviss, taking a sip from his flask. Maybe later, said Alviss, sitting back down. The following event was a melee. It focused on having too many armies crashing against one another in a formation as they pushed each other back. Eventually, the melee would turn into a free-for-all with blunt weapons smashing into each other's armor. The melee actually went better. Despite a few numbers, our small team was able to back a company of 20. Overall, there were 10 companies competing at once, which was visually a bit of a mess. In the free-for-all section, Paola, Sir Richard, and Alviss kept close to one another. They targeted anyone who had their backs turned. In lieu of traditional swords, they used Chicot's club, whose blows rent the armor and shields asunder. The opponents felt the blow, even though they were not cut. The following days were the preliminary duels, followed by the archery contest. Paola's preliminary match was against an elven maid. The maiden was wearing a light leather armor and her main weapon was an elongated rapier. Her weapon was supposed to have a dull edge. This proved false when she placed all her weight on her sword and it pierced right through Paola's shield. It was lucky that the curve of the chest plate bent the tip. The elf was arrested for using a true rapier in the tournament. Like a sharp rapier, like she almost got ate. By the end of the day, the elf was gone and no one could track her down, so it was basically an assassination attempt on Paola. After the brief intermission, the preliminaries recommenced. While watching the show, I asked, Chicot, was that an assassin? Seems like I said Chicot, Johnny. Why would somebody want to harm Paola? Asked Guitarra. It probably has something to do with one of your many murders, said Alviss, Johnny. Whatever you say, old man, said Chicot, smiling. Looking over my shoulder, I noticed some people eavesdropping. They chuckled when they saw Chicot's diminutive size and his missing limbs. It was impossible for them to imagine that Chicot could kill a person. Close to those, Cervicia and Amberandos had their match in the preliminaries. Much to all the audience's dismay, Cervicia forfeited the match. The second day of the tournament ended with many questions. It left me wondering if somebody would make another assassination attempt in the near future. When night fell, I did not see Chicot in his tent. As the sun rose, the tournament was put on hold for a couple of hours while the undertakers removed several bodies before anyone was the wiser. It seemed as if the Lord of Et Ciri cared too much about the event to bother to do a proper investigation. Still, for good measure, there was twice as many guards in the tournament. The archery tournament lasted till midday, and Paola and Cervicia barely made it to the top 20. They had pretty poor aim. As for Verandas, he was the crown champion of the event. In the final duels, Paola made it to the semifinals. However, in her fourth bout lasted half an hour. She eventually forfeited since she was not making a dent in her giant, well-clad opponent. While she was dragged to our camp, Chicot left his seat to see her. I followed behind. Chicot removed the armor and he threw water at Paola's face. He then showered the armor in cold water. A bit of steam rose to the surface as the water was poured on him. The armor overheated, said Chicot sadly. He gave me a bit of ointment and said, take care of Paola's mouth burns. I'm going to go check up on the rest of the tournament. I obeyed Chicot and disdainfully put on ointment on Paola. When she was good to go, I returned to the stadium where she rested in camp. The final battle was between Alverandos and Lord Salot. Lord Salot was said to be one of the most honorable berserker lords, and he also participated in public events with the hope of changing public's opinion about his kind. The irony was that his constant victories in this tournament was only making people more afraid of their overlords. So do you think Alverandos can win? I asked, returning to my seat. I doubt it. It all depends on his disposition, said Chicot. What do you mean? I asked. He means Alverandos chokes when he's in the center of attention, said Alviss, nursing his fist flask of ale. Wait, what? That is so childish, I said, taken aback. He's been this way ever since his first unit was wiped out, said Gita, shaking her head. The moment that doubt crossed his mind, he would certainly lose. Just what you know about fighting, said Chicot, folding his arm. Alverandos and Lord Salot were about to start the battle, but they suddenly stopped and stared at something above their heads. Time, bro?
Yeah, 6 minutes.
They followed it with their eyes as if hypnotized by it. I looked up to the sky to see what they were looking at. Alas, there was nothing there to see. As the skirmish progressed, both would instinctively react to something that only they saw. And I was starting to see what Chicot was referring to. Both men had better vision than normal humans, and what they saw distracted them from what was standing before them. Alverandos stopped suddenly and said, do you want to just wait a bit? I would prefer not to drag this fight much longer, said Lord Salot. Alverandos wearily raised his claymore with one hand and prepared for the fight. His fighting suddenly became more sloppy, his swings wilder and fiercer, and all Lord Salot could do was block with his sword and shield. With his last swing, he smashed the claymore against Lord Salot's shield. This blow made the sword get stuck. Since he could not use his weapon, he held Lord Salot's sword with his hand to close the distance. When he was close enough, he smashed his helmet against Lord Salot's head. Lord Sela kicked Alvarandus away. Gianni Alvarandus removed his helmet. When a knight did this, it meant that he was forfeiting the match. Alvarandus stumbled towards the camp. Once he was within, he emptied an entire wine bottle in one gulp. Chicot patted his head and said, "Don't worry, I don't mind that you lads. You have nothing to prove to those drunken slugs." When I drew closer, I saw that Alvarandus was crying. It was shameful to see a grown man cry. I left the room because I could not stand to look at him. Chicot had to use plenty of coaxing and wooing to get Alvarandus to settle down. The 2 hours before midnight, Lord Sela came to our humble camp. He said plainly to Alvarandus, who was still drinking, "I salute you. It was a fine match, though I must admit that you should have been the victor." "It doesn't matter, the fight is over. Just leave it at that," said Alvarandus without much enthusiasm. The following day they had the boxing preliminaries and the hammer throwing contest. Only Sir Richard participated in the boxing match. Sir Richard only used the gauntlets of his armor. They were imperceptibly bent in a way to scrape the bare skin of his opponent. As for the other fighters, they used solid iron gauntlets. Almost all those who fought ended up a bloody mess, and the hammer throwing was at least less messy. The rules were simple. The participants had to swing a heavy iron hammer and then throw it as far as they could. The one who threw it the furthest won. Sir Richard won 2 matches but lost the third. As such, he failed to qualify for the finals. He did fare better in the hammer throwing contest, as did Paola Lambarandus. Paola, in fact, was one of the finalists, but she naturally lost to Lord Salem. The last day of the event ended rather pleasantly with a single jousting match. This single match was done between the Black Knight and the finalists of the jousting competition. The title of Black Knight was given to the champion of this event, and the current leader had maintained his title even after having to defend it in more than 60 jousting matches. As was to be expected, the Black Knight was victorious. The rest of the day was spent in celebration while drinking and dancing about. Things turned sour for a little party when Chicot was calling for questioning. I was afraid that he would get tortured again. We all breathed a sigh of relief when Chicot came back in one piece. We all decided to leave early to avoid any further problems. Bye-bye and God bless.